Hi, I'm Dr. Aaron Brinen, Assistant Professor of Clinical Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. This webinar was recorded when I was at Drexel University. Enjoy! And so today's topic, hygiene and grooming, is often one that comes up in workshops. I think everybody gets very excited about getting people to move forward. And then all of a sudden, hygiene and grooming comes up as like, yeah, but what about this? So I think it's a really good topic. I think it's a really good topic because it's something that many people focus in on, and yet it's something that many people feel really frustrated about because they don't get the benefits out of it. Also, to be fair, I think problems with hygiene and grooming are oftentimes really ones that are aversive to the clinician, and I think clinicians oftentimes feel embarrassed about being annoyed and distressed by it, but yet really annoyed because it's really distressing and problematic, right? Because if a person has a problem with hygiene and you're in a very small room, or you're driving them somewhere, that can be difficult, right? And so we're going to talk about ways to be successful around this. Early on in the work that I did, particularly in Georgia, I think a lot of it was theoretical with some really good case examples. Now, talking to you now, I'll tell you that it is something that we have focused in on, and I've seen so many cases regarding hygiene and grooming that it's not a theoretical thing. Now, granted, I would love to. It's funny, hygiene and grooming is not something that somebody's going to give me money to do like a randomized clinical trial on. It's just not. But when I tell you about the places that go and adopt this approach to hygiene and grooming, the problems with hygiene and grooming go away. The places that say, no, 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 you're stupid and wrong, those are the ones who are still arguing with people about hygiene and grooming. So when we're talking about hygiene and grooming, I want to be really clear about this. I'm talking about the individuals who clinicians have talked to over and over and over and over again about problems with hygiene and grooming. And I'm also talking about, sort of cleaning up your apartment and stuff like that, right? Tidiness and those things as well oftentimes fall into this. If all of a sudden you meet with somebody and you give them sort of a schedule and tell them, hey, have you thought about this? And it works all on its own. Those aren't the people we're talking about. We're talking about the people who you've called and talked to over and over and over and over and over again. And they and they're still having trouble with hygiene and grooming. So if you've done it once, and you kind of give them the hygiene talk and it worked, great. Those are not the people we're talking about today. We're talking about the people who every week we're having this conversation around hygiene, grooming, cleaning up their apartment, those things. So with that, let's get this party started. Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is really trying to formulating the problems with hygiene and grooming. Then we're going to really talk about applying the CTR protocol to hygiene and grooming, and then developing a really specific strategy to address what I'll refer to as the fire versus the smoke. I think what happens with hygiene and grooming is we focus in on the smoke, but we never get to fixing the fire. And then a couple little tricks of the trade to sharpen that strategy as we go into it. So hygiene and grooming. So there are lots of individuals who cases that I supervise, people talk about problems with hygiene and grooming. I think there's two ways that this oftentimes goes. One, people just, they focus in on just instructing the person about the importance of it. And they oftentimes have very little success in that approach. I think the other one is sometimes people get very, like they really project what this means. So we kind of like jump to a bunch of conclusions that we don't have much data to talk about. And so not that problems with hygiene and grooming, it's not that, when people start talking about trauma and problems with trauma as a reason for problems with hygiene and grooming. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. I'm saying that we oftentimes can jump to a conclusion without any data to support that. And so I think there's a much more simple explanation for problems with hygiene and grooming before we start thinking about trauma reactions. So teams can struggle with it. It can be really frustrating I mean it, having been a person who's met with individuals with real severe problems with their hygiene and grooming. It can be really uncomfortable to be in that room. It can be uncomfortable. And then if you're sharing spaces, that other staff members might get very judgmental of you. And, should we care? No. I mean, listen, we're here to serve the individuals we serve. Are we all humans? Yeah. I caught it from my mom on the day I was born. So it still can be really uncomfortable. The other thing is that families or staff in say like a group living environment or at a hospital really focus on it, right? So if you think that you focus on it, it ends up on the honeydew list all the time with staff. And so that's another reason we think about it. I get pretty strident about this idea. I want us to stop allowing people to call it ADLs. When people say these individuals aren't attending to their ADLs, nobody cares about whether this person is cooking. Nobody cares about whether this person is, going for a pleasant walk, right? Nobody cares about their activities of daily living. When people say ADLs, it is a code word for the person smells, their hair is long and bad, and their apartment's a mess. So people aren't really cared about the other activities of daily living. They care about this person showering, shaving, getting their hair cut, and cleaning up their bedroom. So, I'm not a big fan of euphemisms. I think this is like the biggest euphemism. People go, oh, trouble with ADLs. So why is it happening? I think the best explanation, or a parsimonious explanation for problems with hygiene and grooming, it really comes back to the negative symptoms. Those ones like avolition, asociality. It's those problems with motivation. And so here's the thing. When somebody has avolition, they have no motivation to engage in productive activity. None. So it's not that they have no energy or motivation to engage in productive activity, but they will shower. No, they have no energy or motivation to engage in productive activity. None. And so that would include showering, shaving, getting a haircut, all of those things. And so this reduction in goal-directed activity and motivation and expression is really the fire that drives the problems with hygiene and grooming. Interestingly, one of the teams that I was supervising really that we were talking on a supervision call, and they really acknowledged how they'll never again question why individuals, after the COVID isolation, they're like, I'll never again question how somebody could forget to shower or brush their teeth or, not have the energy or mental focus to do that, because they really have started, and I've had this experience as well, really started to notice how mentally dull we can become during this isolation. My wife was even telling me that, I think it was on NPR, there was some study or some observation that fewer people are reading because they just have less motivation to do those types of things during the COVID isolation. I know that for me, anybody who's been to a workshop has given me this sort of like the stink eye when I point out, like, when I'm away on like a vacation or a long weekend, I've had these experiences in the past. Does it go on for like 2-3 months? Absolutely not, right? But it's really easy for all of a sudden Sunday to come for me and I go, oh, wow. Oh, I got to shower, right? Things like that. The thing that the piece that comes along with the negative symptoms is this. Negative symptoms mean that you have low motivation. So you're not doing a lot. And when you're not doing a lot, we become a little more mentally dull. And so, I mean, think about any time during the COVID isolation when you've had time where you haven't been doing much and you're sort of out of stuff to do. And the more mentally dull we have, the less access to mental resources we have, the harder it is to focus on lots of things, right? And so mental resources include things like attention. So things like attention, like paying attention to the fact that, like, maybe I haven't showered. Memory, right? Remembering that I want to go do that thing. Um, Paying attention to things like discomfort or dirtiness, right? I just might miss it. And so our individuals are at a higher risk of this, right? So, or there's sort of a lower threshold for their mental resources to become much more dim. And so as a result, um, it's not that they don't know to shower. It's not that they don't know that showering is a good thing. It's that they're just not paying attention to it, and they're kind of not caring. There's not like a lot of emotion behind it going, oh, I should do this. I think one guy once said, why shower? Where am I going? Why change my clothes? Where am I going? And so it was such a powerful thing that he said to the clinician. The clinician's like, I guess he's right. Like, what is he getting dressed up for? But let's go back to the beliefs that go along with the negative symptoms, right? So if the symptom that we're focused in on are the negative symptoms, and those are the fire that's driving the problems with hygiene, grooming, cleaning up your apartment, cleaning up your house, those things, we got to figure out what is the fuel source for the fire. And those are going to be a set of beliefs. Particularly, we're going to focus in on the defeatist beliefs. Why try? It's not going to work out anyway. A little mistake is as bad as complete catastrophe. And then the conservation of energy, right? I can't do it until I get the energy. So conservation of energy, right? So if I go, oh, well, I'll go take a shower when I get the energy, and I lay around, and then all of a sudden nighttime comes, and I go, well, why am I going to get showered? I'm going to bed. And I go to bed, and then the next day I go, oh, I still don't have the energy. So it's this inaccurate belief that some people have, which is that energy will lead to, I need to wait for the energy in order to be active. And they don't recognize that activity precedes. So activity leads to more energy, not in the opposite direction of energy leads to activity. And so as they become more inactive, they have lower motivation. But remember, as they're inactive, their brains are becoming just a little bit more dull. I really hope that some people on this call have the ability to I hope you take a little time to self-reflect and go, oh yeah, when I've had a long weekend, been on a vacation, if anybody's ever gone on a vacation to like a lake house or something like that, I think those are, or even a beach house. They're just prime locations. Beach houses are harder because you have the sand, but like lake houses are such a perfect example of it. Like you could be sitting there and one day goes into the other. Anybody who's ever said, I can't believe it's Tuesday already. And people are like, it's Friday, we're leaving tomorrow. And you're like, what? That's the type of mental dulling that we're talking about. The defeatist performance beliefs, right? Why try? It won't work out anyway. I'm broken. A little mistake is as bad as a complete catastrophe, right? So this is going to lead to this is going to reduce the engagement in productive activity. Thinking about, if you have a whole queue of notes to fill out, if you tell yourself, why try? It's not going to work out anyway. Are you more likely or less likely to do those notes? If you go down into your basement and you go, I'm never going to get through this basement. Why try? It's never going to work out anyway. Are you more likely or less likely to jump in and start moving stuff in your basement? Right. You're less likely to do that. Same is true for the individuals that we serve. So here's the big problem with it, right? Is that many of the typical interventions, right? Things like scheduling, hygiene, and grooming, right? Sitting down and charting out the behavior, developing a behavior plan for the individual, right? To make sure that they remember to do hygiene and grooming. Sitting and having a discussion about the importance of hygiene, the importance of oral hygiene, talking about, the agreement, your rental agreement and how important it is. And, if somebody comes to your apartment and does an inspection, you could lose it, and how it's hard to get it. All of these things that we can do, sort of educating individuals in the importance of hygiene, grooming, and taking care of their apartment. Think about, what is the impact on a belief? The idea that I'm broken, the idea that why try? I'm not going to be able to do it anyway. Or a little mistake is as bad as a complete catastrophe. Do those beliefs get more intense when people try scheduling in your hygiene and grooming, like writing it all down for you? Has anybody here ever had to give the talk to like an employee, right? Or a coworker, right? The talk about hygiene and grooming? How, um, how capable did that person look at the end? No matter how good you are, right? How perfect you can give the hygiene talk. Did that person look like did they seem really empowered and proud at the end of that talk? Or did they seem sort of like demoralized and bummed out? Right. So I don't care, I say a lot of times, I don't care, how much of a lipstick you put on that pig of a conversation. It's a terrible conversation to have. And so thinking about the fact that our individuals already see themselves as broken, defective, this conversation is only going to reinforce that, right? Focusing in on hygiene and grooming is only going to reinforce that idea. So if the beliefs get worse, right? If the beliefs get more intense of I'm broken, why try, things aren't going to work out anyway. If the beliefs get worse, then is the individual going to is their problem, is their motivation going to go up or down if the beliefs get more intense? Right? The motivation goes down. So if I don't have any motivation and I feel more and I'm getting more dull, the chances of hygiene and grooming and taking care of your apartment, the chances of those fixing themselves are actually getting further away. And the likelihood that the behavior that we're trying to address is going to continue. So we're almost pouring gasoline on the fire that's leading to the problems of hygiene and grooming. And it's inadvertent. I mean, listen, I think it's nice. It's behavioral. I think people are trying to be kind. I think people are very gentle about it. I've seen some amazing hygiene and grooming talks. I used to be amazing at it. I definitely have um, I have sort of the gift of gab, so I think I can, usually let people, tell people to take a leap off of a dock and have them look forward to the journey, right? So, I think the art of diplomacy is there. The problem is that it's still it just I've rarely seen it be successful. And then people will oftentimes go, no, 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 Aaron, no, no, no. I know it can be successful. I've seen it be successful. And my question is always this: is it successful once, or does the person solve their problems with hygiene and grooming in the long run? If we're not doing a long run solution, I didn't go to grad school so I could sit and talk to people about showering. That's not the reason why I started doing what I'm doing. And so if it does, I want long-term solutions. I don't want to have to keep talking with somebody each week about it. So now let's start thinking about what is the actual strategy going to be? What can we do, right? What are we going to do so that we're not exacerbating the symptom and also not alienating the person, right? That's the problem, is that oftentimes this conversation makes the individual feel all alone, alienated, and so they will withdraw more from the individual. So the way that we're going to do it is we're really going to focus in on treating the symptom and not the behavior. So the behavior, the smoke, is the problems with hygiene and grooming. The fire is going to be the symptom, and the symptom is avolition. So what is the strategy, right? I want you guys to all take a moment and think about it. From a CTR standpoint, how do we help individuals with problems with motivation, right? How do we help them when they have low mental resources? What is the go-to part of the protocol? Think about, there's sort of 3 steps to the protocol. What is the go-to that you start with when you're doing CTR? Right. We're going to be talking about activation, right? We start with activation, then we want to elicit aspirations, and then we're going to ultimately develop action. So the trick here is we're really going to activate their mental resources to a point that they have more energy. So there's a great ACT team lead. in Philadelphia, and he's a Marine. And I think there are lots of really great team leads that I've met over the years. I have to tell you that Marines and soldiers and sailors and guardsmen and women are wonderful leaders. And so this guy was a Marine, and I remember one time I was talking with the team about issues of hygiene and grooming, and he's so funny because he goes, "Who's giving them a hygiene talk? If I find you doing a hygiene talk, you're gonna have to sit down and talk with me." And he had developed a strategy. He had, through our work together, he had come up with a strategy of every time you found that the individual was struggling with hygiene, your goal was to do more activities with them. So the team was supposed to just start doing more stuff with them and stop not talk at all about hygiene and grooming. And it was a really effective approach. So nobody was allowed to talk about hygiene and grooming with the individuals. Engagement's going to take a lot of different forms. So activating is going to take a lot of different forms. Really, we're looking at these things that we do together with people. So the first part of it is going to be action and activity, doing stuff with the person, going for a walk, doing all those things. Lots of conversations. So communication priming is going to be really key. And even talking, especially talking about people's aspirations. Here's the key though, and this is super important for people to remember. One of the mistakes people make about aspirations is they start talking with the individual about their aspirations, and then they do a move where they go, if you don't address your hygiene and grooming, you're never going to be able to get a you're never going to be able to get a job. You're never going to get married. So they sort of an ultimatum. If you don't do this, then you're not going to be, if you don't attend to your hygiene and grooming, you're not going to be able to get a job. If you don't attend to your hygiene and grooming, you're not going to be able to get into school or you're not going to find a partner. And so the problem is that's still pushing on the gas pedal of broken, defective, why try things aren't going to work out anyway. And so if we're talking about aspirations, just talk about aspirations, make them really vivid, start taking steps toward the aspirations. Because remember, the more active I get, the more mental resources I'm going to have. So thinking about lots of pleasurable activities, right? So those might be start with video games, YouTube, playing cards, reading, coloring, playing music with somebody, anything to get the person going. Because remember, the issue that we've got right now is that we want to get their brain juice flowing, right? Because the more brain juice I have, the more I start paying attention. The reality is, if I have problems with hygiene, is that it can be really uncomfortable. I mean, think about any time, this is the moment of truth, although nobody can see you, so you can be honest with yourself. Anytime you've forgotten to take a shower or you don't take a shower till night or something like that, and you're really busy, or even just think of a time when you were like working in the yard all day. By the time you come inside, you're physically uncomfortable, right? It's really uncomfortable to when you don't shower. That's one of the things to remember. So the more mental energy I have, the more my brain is going, and the more I'm doing stuff, I'm also going to start paying attention to the way I'm going to start feeling those things. So get them playing basketball more, because as they're doing more, they have more mental energy, but they're also getting sweaty. So they're going to feel that. So their attention is going to be increasing while they're having physical sensations that they can pay attention to. So we want to get people going more, because the more mental energy they have, the more they're going to be, the idea of hygiene, grooming, cleaning up is going to come into play. Taking the therapy out on the road, right? Going out for coffee, going and walking around the neighborhood. There's some sort of physical requirements that come up as you're going around, right? So as we start increasing activity, the activity level, people just are going to have more of that mental energy. They're also going to have more pleasant emotions. They're going to be a little bit more motivated. And further, as you start doing more pleasurable activities, your body starts moving around. So you start noticing that things are uncomfortable. You might also start moving around your apartment and noticing that it's really cluttered. There's a case that I talk about in the workshops. And this person was teaching somebody how to cook. Well, all of a sudden this person goes into the kitchen and the kitchen's a mess. And she's like, well, why is the kitchen a mess? And so then she starts cleaning up her kitchen as well. So the idea here is to systematically activate this adaptive mode. As people are in the adaptive mode, like I said, they have more access to cognitive resources. So they're going to be paying attention more. They're going to be remembering things more that they want to do. It also focuses a person in on the connection. So as they're connected with another person, we can capitalize on that. We're going to talk about the connection a little bit later, about how with more connection, we might want to start doing things together, right? So there's a great way of sort of doing activation adjacent with somebody. And like I said, the more physically you're moving around, the more uncomfortable it is to not have showered and things like that. So, but really what we're looking at here is not to bribe the person. We're not rewarding them for attending to their hygiene and grooming when we do activation. We're actually just trying to increase their mental resources and activate the beliefs around capability and things like that. So we're actually just getting them active. It's not a reward. We don't say, oh, if you shower, I'll take you to coffee. That's not what we're doing. We're literally just doing stuff with them with the goal that ultimately they're going to have enough mental resources that they're going to focus on it themselves. Once we have once an individual starts doing that, like, so if somebody goes and gets a haircut, if somebody goes in all of a sudden they come out and it's clear like they've just taken a shower, you know, if all of a sudden you go into their apartment and it's, you know, their kitchen's all cleaned up, right? We can draw a conclusion from it, right? So if somebody has a haircut, it's fine to go, oh man, did you get your haircut? That looks awesome, man. Oh, that's really cool. You look like an accountant with that. Like, it's pretty classy, right? So you can draw that connect, but the connection's not bidirectional. So what I mean by that is this: it's okay, you know, if somebody attends to their hygiene and grooming, it's okay to highlight the benefits. Oh, does that feel better? Does it feel better having like a shorter beard? Oh man, you just took a shower. Doesn't that feel great? Like a nice hot shower first thing in the morning. Or, oh man, your kitchen looks really clean. Isn't it nice to sort of like everything's put away? Does it feel like relaxing like that? That's okay, right? So that's good, right? To draw that conclusion, because the person's done it and now we go, oh, that's really good. Or, oh my gosh, your whole apartment looks amazing. Or, that's a cute outfit. Where did you get that from? The opposite isn't true. We don't want to say you'd feel better if you'd shower. You'd look better if you cut your beard, right? That's bad, right? And I think an example that I oftentimes talk about is, it's like losing weight, right? So all of my life, anybody who knows me, there's, you know, my weight goes up and down. I do stuff. Sometimes I'm successful. Sometimes I'm not successful. And it's all fine. But what I can say is this, is that when I'm losing weight, if somebody says, oh my gosh, you look great, what are you doing? You know, or does it feel good? You lost all this weight. And I'll tell them everything I'm doing. Happy, feel really good. Who doesn't like being told that they've lost weight, and talking about what's so good about it? Perfect. The opposite's not true, right? When I've gained weight, if somebody goes, have you thought about counting your calories again and maybe like running a little bit? Wouldn't that be better? Then I feel really bad. So it doesn't go in both directions. So if somebody takes a shower, it's fine to go, oh, doesn't that feel great? I love a good hot shower, right? The opposite isn't true, which is, you know, you'd feel better if you took a really nice hot shower. So we can draw the conclusions of the benefit of attending the hygiene, grooming, taking care of their apartment. So we want to reinforce the successful behavior. We're not going to be highlighting the need for them to engage in it more. So we schedule the benefit, not the act, right? So what we're going to schedule is, it feels so relaxing, right? Yeah, I feel relaxed too. When do you want to feel relaxed like this, right? Or, yeah, it's so nice to have the bedroom just nice and clean and organized. When do you want to feel nice and clean and organized? So you can schedule the benefit. You're not going to schedule the when are you going to clean your apartment? When are you going to take your shower? When are you going to get your, when are you going to get your hair cut? Right? So schedule the benefit. Then you can say, well, is it nice to sort of have it done at the same time all the time? So you never end up going and not having a haircut for a long time, or, stuff like that. You can schedule the benefit, not the act. So one of the things that we can do is a little tricky trick. It's a little, it's sort of really understanding how this piece is all going to work together. So the tricky trick is going to go like this. Once you get the person's energy up, you don't have to leave it all to just sort of randomness at that point, right? You actually can focus that energy that the person has on the hygiene and grooming. So what I mean by that is this, is if I increase the energy, right? So let's say I'm talking with a guy about cooking for his grandkids, right? And he gets really excited as he's talking about the recipe, and he shows me the, how he do it, and he explains all of the techniques, and he's like super energized. But let's say that his whole apartment is completely like almost like hoarding, or like there's just all of this junk that's sort of piled up. It's not true hoarding. It's just that he just doesn't pay attention to it. So as he has more of that mental energy from talking about cooking for his grandkids, it's perfectly, legal to go, oh man, your grandkids are going to love all of that food, right? So you're going to, so the baking, and then you're going to have cooks, you're going to have dinner and dessert, man. So that's going to be good, right? And then how are you going to set up your table? Now, all of a sudden I said, how am I going to set up the table? And I'm focused over on the table, which is covered with everything. You go, well, I'm going to have to make space for them, and they're going to play while I'm cooking. So I got to clean that up. Me as the provider, obviously if I'm in the home, I go, well, let's get to it. Can I help out? I mean, listen, I'm not here as a lazy, I don't want to be a lazy bones. All of a sudden we've jumped in. So again, we're taking the mental energy that we build up from the cooking, and we focus it on something that has to do with the cooking, which is just a nice way of helping somebody think about the things that they want to do. But it's not saying, well, if you're going to cook, you need a place for your grandkids to be. We should clean up. And then the person deactivates. So again, we're talking about the excitement of cooking, and then go, awesome. It's going to be so much fun having the kids here. The mental energy is focused, almost like focusing a spotlight on the area of need, right? True of any type of hygiene or grooming. The place where they play basketball, instead of the staff coming back to the house after everybody had played basketball and saying, okay, everybody make sure you put on some deodorant, they'd all just go, hey, I'm going to run into the office and put on some deodorant. I don't want to stink you guys out. All of a sudden, all the guys are like, yeah, me too. And they all run up to the rooms and put on deodorant and shower. The last one was, it was a different house, and all of these guys were, they all went out to like a Walgreens or something like that and started smelling Axe body spray, which is really bad. But they all started smelling it, and like body washes and stuff like that. And they all started arguing over which type women would like the best. And so they all bought it to prove that their version was better. And so as soon as they got back, they all did it. So there are lots of these great, nice little examples. Nail therapy is wonderful. I've seen that happen many, many times where it's, you start by doing nails with somebody and then all of a sudden they want to do their own nails. So they keep moving along in that way. So just nice, simple, easy ways to think about we're increasing the mental energy and then focusing it where we want it to go. So a summary about hygiene and grooming, right? Hygiene and grooming is the smoke, it's not the fire, right? The symptom that we're going to address is really avolition. So when you see hygiene and grooming, you should say avolition. You should pull out hygiene and grooming and say avolition. If you have staff who are saying they have problems with hygiene and grooming, start going, do they have problems with motivation? So immediately that should be where we go to. If we directly address it, we're likely to increase the problems with hygiene and grooming. So remember, we don't want to go after it and lecture people and things like that. Most people are not having trouble with the skill. Many of them actually know the skill. And I said at the beginning, listen, if you're at a hospital and you're like, hey, bro, have you thought about let's schedule a time to shower and the person, it resolves? Great. Those aren't the people we're talking about here. What we want to do is we want to activate the individual, get them out doing stuff. If you're thinking about giving a hygiene lecture, pick up your walking shoes, go out for a walk, go to the grocery store, go get a cup of coffee, whatever. I'll be honest. Most people aren't going to notice that the person has trouble with hygiene and grooming. As they're doing it, schedule more activity, right? A lot of times what happens is people say, until you attend to your hygiene and grooming, you can't go do stuff. So we're actually increasing the isolation and inactivity, which is only going to increase the problems with hygiene and grooming. So schedule more activity with the person. Then focus the mental energy on the need. Explaining this to the family is going to be really helpful too, right? Family, staff, and just start with the idea of going, hey guys, we've told him about showering, right? Hopefully the family's going to go, yeah. So he knows that that's available to him, right? Yeah. Or she's heard about showering before. You've told her and reminded her. Yeah, remind her all the time. Okay, good. So it's not working. So let's try something else. Do this as an experiment for a week, 2 weeks, and see where it goes. Reinforce the benefit. Highly misspelled, but reinforce the benefit. Don't reinforce the act, right? So we're going to focus in on how good these things feel. Anybody have any good questions? Or bad questions, that's fine.
Oh gosh. Okay. I forgot how to use technology. So my question is the first off, great lecture. So I almost didn't have any questions, but we have a program here that I'm pretty sure they don't allow people to come if they have poor hygiene. And I don't remember how that was brought up to me or whatever, but I wonder how you might approach talking to a team or a group that had a policy. And I think that the way that they justified it was it disrupts the group if someone smells poorly or that it affects other people.
So, so the first thing that would happen is I'd get super frustrated, right? Because I've never been a big fan of how there are lots of areas in mental health treatment where we expect the person to be cured before they can participate. So I think the strategy would be to then be collaborative and just look at it and go, listen, if this is the do you think this person is doing it purposefully? Probably not, because the people who are getting kicked out of the group are not the purposeful ones. They're the ones who are holding up the walls of Grady, right? And so saying I think it has to do with the symptom. The more away from the group this person is, the less energy they're going to have, and they're going to be less likely to focus in on it. And so why don't we attend to this person, focus in the energy on them for a period of weeks. And listen, if it's a hygiene and grooming issue, why don't we engage this person in, why don't we use stuff that's really sensory, stuff that's really fun? So that might be getting a bunch of like body washes from Bed Bath & Beyond, not because we want people to do it, but just smelling them. And like, once you smell them, you're like, ooh, I want to use that, right? So those types of things. If it's a lot of women in the group, doing nail therapy, not that men can't do nails, but it's like the one intervention I haven't done, but doing it and then having them go show people, being more active in the group, if it's a lot of like chalk and talk groups, I'd start questioning whether these chalk and talk groups are helping anybody anyway. So maybe we need to readjust it. But ultimately, just looking at the data and going, has anybody ever gotten more energized by not being allowed to come in? Like, does that fix the problem usually? Like, and again, I want like more than a 25% benefit rate. Like does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Hey, Aaron, it's Molly.
Hey, Molly.
Hi. Do you have any specific interventions for an individual who really struggles with brushing their teeth?
Well, I mean, so like you might even start with so listen, I do think if nobody's ever talked to them about the benefits of it, that just checking that they know about the benefits of brushing their teeth, right? So I think there's always starting with that, right? And I know that sounds counterintuitive to what we're saying, but like also I know you're working with young people, so saying like, listen, I just want to make sure that about like good oral hygiene and stuff like that. After that, I would say getting them much more energized and then looking at the downsides of not brushing your teeth, right? So like, if they're having oral problems and stuff like that, kind of looking at it being like, what if we didn't have to have that pain as much? The other piece of it would be looking at going like, hey, not for nothing, I just want to make sure that I'm doing right by you, and saying like, listen, those adult teeth are the last you got. So, just to be mindful that like the more you take care of them, the better it's going to be. So how do you know that this person's having trouble with brushing their teeth?
Their mom repeatedly brings it up to me.
Okay.
I mean, this is someone who I've had kind of the, like, what's good about brushing your teeth, what specifically are you what don't you like about it? He has autism. I thought maybe it was a sensory issue for him.
That could be, yeah.
I think it's a little bit more of just a motivation issue.
Right.
And mom does this thing where she threatens him and says like, oh, like if all your teeth fall out, then we're going to have to go to the emergency room with all the coronavirus patients. And it's just not helpful.
I would tell mom, don't do that. Listen, actually, so here's the intervention I would do. I was like, you want mom to shut up? Ooh, excuse me. Sorry, guys. Can we, how about we just sit here? And so the motivation would be to get him to start brushing his teeth, but being like, listen, I know that she's being a pain in the neck and she's not being cool.
I try to build that a lot with him. Like, isn't that so annoying when someone tells you to brush your teeth? Like, wouldn't it be great if that just went away? Like,
right. And then doing like a, listen, not for nothing, like, and it's so interesting. It would almost be like the way when I talk about cannabis, I get people's buy-in with the facts, because I really discount the reefer madness approach. I'm like, listen, I'm not going to do like a reefer madness about this thing, right? So I do the same thing for oral hygiene. I'd be like, listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that your teeth are going to fall out like George Washington. You're going to have wood teeth and splinters on your tongue. Like, I'm not going to do that to you. But listen, here's the things, this is what could happen. And I mean, the best case scenario would be that mom kind of is quiet, right? And listen, here's other reasons to do it, right? If this person's interested in dating, you can be like, listen, mom's whole you're gonna get corona if you don't brush your teeth is like baloney. But like, listen, if you want to date, listen, it's good to just be in the habit. It's sort of like, there you never get a second chance to make a first whiff of breath. So like, listen, if your breath's a little bit better, stuff like that. And you're not gonna have all your teeth ripped out and they're not gonna fall out. But listen, a root canal is really painful.
Mm-hmm.
And as you get older and mom's not paying for it, it's actually really expensive. Like, no dental insurance covers it. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but here's why. And then mom shuts up. I think that's it might not be the most high-minded intervention, but I think that might be just a way in it. And then once he starts brushing his teeth, going like, oh, cool. Is it as much of a pain in the neck as he thought it was going to be? Does it feel better? Just kind of feeling fresh. Does it feel fresh and stuff like that? Those types of things.
Thanks, Anne. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Has he ever had to get a cavity or a root canal or anything like that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it might be like, what's that like? What's that like? And that seems like threatening, but it's more going like, what's that like? Let's avoid that.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Kind of
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, with that, I wish you a very happy Friday. And if you have off on Monday for Memorial Day, I hope you have a wonderful Memorial Day. If you've been, you're very welcome. If you know somebody who served, or if you served yourself, thank you so much for your service. And I hope you take some time for yourselves. And I will see you guys on Friday for activity scheduling. Be well, take care. And I'm Dr. Aaron Brinen of the Department of Clinical Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences at Vanderbilt University. Thank you so much. See you next time.